And I don't know where Sandy is, but Sandy, thanks for all that you do. I was Sandy's assistant when we hired Sandy as the CEO. It was Sandy and I and who was the third from Jeff? Anyways, see, senior moments. We were in the selection committee, and it was a great process, and my leader did a great job, and I like to cast a vote with my leader, so we did, and Sandy's been a terrific leader. And I also want to recognize the staff. What you learn when you do this, when you chair a meeting like this and you chair the board, you really see the professionalism of the staff of the chamber. And what you see about what's really kind of interesting is that it's a lot of the same people that are really been doing this for the last, well, I've been here 24 years in a row, but it is a terrific staff. And to Tammy and Wendy, who sort of makes everything work back there, and a whole bunch of people, and they know who all they are. Thank you for all that you've done over the years as well. I've had the fortune, and today's a little bittersweet, but it's time, to introduce the governors the last 16 years, except last year when I had back surgery, and when you get back surgery, you don't come to Mackinac Island. It's been a pleasure. Governor Granholm, Governor Snyder, and now Governor Whitmer. And this is especially poignant for me personally. The governor and I have known each other since we worked together in the State House when she was in law school back a little bit more than 30 years ago. And since then, we've been friends and cohorts and done a lot of really great things. And it has been such a pleasure for me personally to watch her growth as a leader. We all knew 6 years ago when they were on the stage for the debate for governor, 6 years ago, almost tonight, I think. And it all sort of went from there. And she's developed into such a leader in very trying times. I mean, we've all go through it. I don't need to repeat it, but man, you think about it, it's like mind-boggling. And then also been able to manage through in a bipartisan way with both House and Senate leadership, a ton of things for the state of Michigan. When you think of, I'll give you an example. I'm the chair of the Mackinac Island Park Commission here on the island. There was an appropriations, the water system on Mackinac was breaking down and was going to be done. The legislature on a bipartisan nature and the governor got this done, and fresh water will continue on Mackinac Island. And those kind of infrastructure things are happening all around the state. And whether it's educate, it doesn't matter, pick the subject matter, the governor has led. And so I don't need to continue with the accolades. I think what makes a lot of sense is to introduce the 49th governor of the state of Michigan, Gretchen Whitmer.
I appreciate that so much. It's so good to be here with all of you, and I want to thank Conference Chair Suzanne Shank, who's hosted another fantastic CEO Sandy Barua. I was standing back there with him, and Dan was talking about Sandy and Sandy. I think one of them was Pierce, but lots of Sandys up in here. And of course, all the staff who put this important event together every year. This has been an incredible conference, and once again, we've had spectacular weather. No one should take credit for it, because when it turns, you'll get blamed, but we should clap for the weather, right? I hope you got to see my good friend Gina Raimondo speak earlier. I think she is just an incredible leader for our country. And as she mentioned, she also is a Michigander by marriage. So that is another thing that we are proud of. As I said yesterday, between her and Secretary Pete Buttigieg, Michigan is slowly marrying our way into the entire cabinet. Of course, I want to thank my partner in governance, our Lieutenant Governor Garland Gilchrist. And before I jump into the speech, I want to make sure that we take a moment to give all the people who work behind the scenes a big thank you. We know that the Grand Hotel staff, that the chamber staff, that the folks on the island work so hard to make sure they're ready for this first big event of the season. So let's give them our round of applause too. 2 years ago on this stage, I talked about Michigan in the year 2100 and what we need to do now to set up future generations for success. Last year, I spoke about how we can strategically grow our economy and our population and establish an aptly named council to create a state strategy to meet our population goals. The theme of this year's conference, thank you, Suzanne, is Bridging the Future Together, which is fitting for an island in the sight of the mighty Mac. The bridge is a living symbol of the promise of our state. It is a million-ton monument to what Michiganders can do when we put our minds together to solve a difficult problem. And that's what I want to talk about today. We will focus on economic development and one aspect in particular, innovation. Michigan has a rich history of innovation. We all know that. The University of Michigan is the second largest recipient of R&D funding and holds the third most patents of any institution in the nation. Michigan State University's facility for rare isotope beams discovered new isotopes just a few months ago. Wayne State University's Techtown Detroit has supported more than 6,000 businesses and raised more than $400 million in capital. But out of a sample of 231 high-tech startups originally founded in Michigan, just half of them remain, which begs the question, how can we support innovators, grow Michigan's economy, and set our state up for sustained success? I'm going to talk about the 3 C's of innovation: culture, capital, and creativity, and unveil new tools to build on our economic development record and unleash Michigan innovation. Because we all know Michiganders are innovators. Dr. Homer Stryker from Kalamazoo built a medical tech empire. If you've ever been in a hospital, you've seen the Stryker name on things. Elijah McCoy from Detroit filed 57 patents, including a portable ironing board, a lawn sprinkler, and a device that lubricated train parts as they were running. There's a joke there somewhere, but I still haven't come up with it. Sherman Poppin of Muskegon needed a way to entertain his 2 daughters one snowy Christmas. So he stuck 2 skis together and called this new board the Snurfer. It would later be called the snowboard. Bill Post invented the Pop-Tart, as dramatized in Jerry Seinfeld's new movie. Kids really owe us, and so do dentists. James Berner invented ginger ale. Berner's ginger ale, right? A delicious pop that my grandma Gretchen and mom Sherry believed cured literally everything. Anna Bissell sold the sweeper that she and her late husband patented together, and she went on to become the first woman CEO in America. And of course, there's so many others. Pfizer in Portage, Parago and Steelcase in Grand Rapids, Whirlpool in St. Joe, Faygo in Detroit, Chelsea Milling Company, also known as Jiffy Cornbread in Chelsea, Carhartt in Dearborn, Stormy Cromer in Ironwood, and I could go on and on and on. And of course, we all know the most famous Michigan innovation, automobile manufacturing. At the turn of the 20th century, Michigan had some natural advantages: railroads, waterways, timber, and ore. Putting lines on the road and installing the first ever traffic light at the corner of Woodward and Michigan was just step one. Then came the assembly line, the Model T, which took the world by storm. By 1940, 60% of the world's cars were assembled in the great state of Michigan. Aspiring auto innovators flooded Michigan and founded new companies like Chrysler and GM. Michigan was the center of action. For centuries, innovators drove Michigan forward, solved problems, and pushed boundaries in the process. They proved that innovation is infectious. One idea leads to more. And this cycle quickly becomes self-perpetuating. It brings new ideas, people, jobs, and opportunities to our communities. Starting that virtuous cycle comes down to a few things: a skilled workforce, a streamlined process, access to capital, support to test, develop, and commercialize ideas. We've made progress in many of these areas, but today, let's go farther. It starts with the 3 I's I mentioned earlier: culture, capital, and creativity. I think you know by now I love alliteration. 3 C's is great. The truth is, entrepreneurs need all 3 of these things to survive and to thrive. They need to feel represented in the culture, and capital to make audacious bets on their ideas, and fewer barriers to creativity. So first, culture. We must build a culture of innovation and make Michigan a place where innovators and entrepreneurs feel seen and heard. We can't do this alone. It takes pioneers, and thankfully, we have some doing work every day in places like Corktown, supported by organizations like Black Tech Saturdays and Michigan Founders Fund. Next week, many will be moving into a revitalized Michigan Central Station. I want to thank Bill Ford for his leadership to get this done. Many of you may know Bill Ford as Sheila's brother, but they're on the ground making a concerted effort to build a sense of community and accelerate the innovations that is going to drive our state forward. Our job is to have their backs by making sure they feel seen and represented. Today, I'm pleased that we are going to announce a new team member at the MEDC who will be serving as Michigan's chief advocate and first point of contact for entrepreneurs. Ben Marchiona will be Michigan's first ever Chief Innovation Ecosystem Officer. Ben's going to help build a community of innovation in Michigan where every founder and dreamer knows they have a voice in state government. Second, capital. Ask any entrepreneur what they would do if money were no object, and you'll get an earful. Every entrepreneur knows their next big idea, but access to capital can spur innovation like nothing else. And that's why last January in the State of the State, I proposed an innovation fund to invest in high-growth startups and create thousands of jobs. Today, I'm excited to announce Pitch Me. Pitch Me will be a statewide Shark Tank-style competition, freshwater style, helping innovators address the biggest problems facing Michigan. Pitch Me will identify a challenge that Michigan innovators will rise to meet. The state, in partnership with leading organizations, will host a public competition to solicit pitches and then invest in the most innovative startup. That startup will then be able to take the capital and make a real difference. Have you heard of Ring doorbells? Kodiak cakes? Okay, come on, it's pancake mix. These companies did not get a deal on Shark Tank, but are raging successes because of the work that they did to pitch. Pitch Me is going to draw attention and exposure for hundreds of promising upstarts, making a difference here in Michigan, even if they don't win. The first Pitch Me topic is very near and dear to my heart. This year, Pitch Me will identify and award $100,000 to the next innovative idea in roads and mobility. Shocker. Wow, she's scary. She looks tough, like a real road worker. All right. We're asking a very simple question. How will you help Michiganders get from point A to point B safely, affordably, and efficiently? Is it a new way to fix the roads? Maybe it's improving the range and efficiency of electric vehicle batteries, connecting public transit systems. To everyone out there who eats, sleeps, and breathes fixing the damn roads, now is your chance. Pitch Me is more than just an opportunity to live out your Shark Tank fantasies. It provides the capital you need to get the great idea off the ground so you can solve problems. And we'll be working with partners. It's really exciting. Finally, creativity. Now, I enjoy watching others express their creativity, like Jameer Gibbs, Sam Laporta, and Jamison Williams, who all drew their own lion logos. I'm glad they're skilled on the gridiron, am I right? I even took a stab at painting the logo myself during the draft last month. That's what this thing is that they're passing out. It's my version of the lion. Creativity is important, but it's impossible to be creative in a vacuum unless you're Anna Bissell. Okay, that was a vacuum joke. Even drawing that simple and very accurate Lions logo required paint, canvas, inspiration, practice, and patience. The same is true for the big stuff. To research, test, develop, and commercialize a new idea, you need equipment, facilities, tools, and expertise. Sometimes those fundamentals just cost too much or are completely inaccessible. And while access doesn't guarantee success, lack of access is a complete barrier. Take Remora. They are building next-gen hardware in Wixom to capture semi-truck carbon emissions. But to test wear and tear on their product, they need access to a piece of large, expensive equipment called a chassis dynamometer. All right, for those of you who aren't mechanical engineers like I am, that is a treadmill for a truck. And I'm joking, I am no engineer. It took me a while to practice saying that. I know it's hard to believe people just don't have chassis dynamometers in their garage, but they don't. With access to this device, Remora can subject their prototype to the harshest conditions imaginable, make changes, build a better product. In a word, innovate. But when Remora was an early stage startup and needed a chassis dynamometer, the most affordable one was $188,000 and in Indiana. Not helpful. No one should have to go to Indiana. Michigan has exactly what Remora and other startups need. State and local governments, universities, civic organizations, and the military have some of the most cutting-edge equipment and specialized testing facilities. But too often, they're just inaccessible. So today, let's start building out what I'm calling the infrastructure for innovation right here in Michigan. Earlier today, I signed an executive directive instructing state agencies to catalog technology, equipment, and facilities all across our state and work with the owners to make it available to innovators who need it. Just this morning, thanks to the Biden-Harris administration, we announced an expansion of Project Diamond, a partnership between Automation Alley, Oakland, Macomb, and Wayne counties that will be using federal funding to connect manufacturers with a network of 3D printers. We'll also enter a memorandum of understanding with the Department of Military and Veterans Affairs to make infrastructure like a chassis dynamometer at the U.S. Army Ground Vehicle Systems Center accessible to Michigan innovators. This MOU, the first of many to come, expands access to talent, testing facilities, and equipment. I want to recognize an incredible partner in this work, our Adjutant General, Major General Paul Rogers. Michigan is going to be the first state in the nation to get this done, and the only one to take such a strategic, proactive approach to open the infrastructure for innovation. Together, these three actions will strengthen our comprehensive economic development strategy. So here's a quote. Many of the factories have left Michigan. One of our greatest corporations is building 14 new plants, 7 of them in Ohio and none in Michigan. Western and southern states particularly are doing their utmost to lure industry from Michigan. You know who said that? Republican Governor Kim Sigler in 1947. I think Kim's supposed to pop up now. Oh, we didn't have our picture of Kim pop up. Well, Kim was a pretty good-looking guy, and there he is. There's Kim Sigler. Thank you. Pretty good-looking guy. I want you to see most of the pictures in my office of other former governors. I mean, right? I'm glad it'll be 100 years before someone puts my picture up there and makes some fun of it. We think kids these days like, facial hair. We know our former governors love mutton chops, apparently. They inspire me every day. Anyway. Governor Sigler's solution, a working committee of research talent in agencies, colleges, and institutions to coordinate the state's economic fields and utilize all of our research facilities in economic development. Sound familiar? We worked together in 2021, guided by some of the same principles and instincts that drove Governor Sigler to put powerful economic development tools in our toolbox that have really helped us win transformational projects, creating thousands of high-tech jobs in Detroit, Flint, Big Rapids, Bay City, and Van Buren Township. We've redefined our story. Just years ago, Time called Detroit a tragedy, and now Detroit is one of the world's greatest places. Yes. Since taking office, we've secured more than 38,000 good-paying auto jobs, home to the #1 emerging startup ecosystem and the next Silicon Valley for mobility innovation. And just a couple miles away from where the first concrete road in Michigan was paved, Electrion is building the first under-the-road electric vehicle charging station. Detroit's population is growing for the first time in nearly 70 years. Since last year's conference, yeah, all right, that is good. Thank you. Since last year's conference, we worked with business, labor, environmental leaders, and others to invest in places and people and build a workforce that drives innovation. We lowered the age for Michigan Reconnect to 21, lowered the cost of college with the Michigan Achievement Scholarship, delivered free breakfast and lunch to every public school student, protected reproductive freedoms, and repealed our criminal ban on surrogacy, among other things. We put Michigan in the lead on President Biden's clean energy boom, powered wind and solar projects across the state, and enacted a 100% clean energy standard by 2040. And we will soon be the first state in the nation to restart a nuclear power plant. The eyes of the world are on us as we do this. We've won manufacturing projects from Corning, Piston Automotive, and so many more. We're making the largest investment to build affordable housing in Michigan history. And just yesterday, we raised our housing goal. We've made a lot of progress and kept on telling our story. Recently, we felt something that has always been embodied by our people and defines the spirit of our state: hope. We should believe in Michigan, and we should brag about Michigan. Last month, we hosted the most amazing NFL draft in history, right? We brought our trademark Michigan swagger and pride to the occasion and showed a record-breaking crowd of more than 750,000 fans a great time. Coach Campbell, GM Brad Holmes, and owner Sheila Hamp made some great picks, and the Lions are ready to roar back into the playoffs this fall. And not just the playoffs, we're winning the big game this year. So my fellow Michiganders, We have an opportunity to tell the next chapter of our story. Let's get to work building an innovation ecosystem that is the envy of other states. Let's keep growing Michigan's economy and our population. Let's build a bridge to the future and create a more innovative, prosperous, and strong Michigan. I know together there's nothing we can't do. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Governor. That was great.
Here, I want to give you one of my lions, Dan. I worked really hard on it.
I'll treasure it forever. How are you?
I'm good.
Great. It's always good to see you. The conference this year talks about bridging the divide into the future together. And I talked a little bit, as I introduced you, to talk about the really great things that have worked in a bipartisan way over the last few years. But everybody wants more, and it's a lot of things that need to get done. How does the bipartisanship continue as we move forward with a lot of projects that still have to be done?
Yeah. We've got a lot of important things we have to accomplish. And as we think about the needs of our economy, the needs of our people, the mutual goals of growing our population and diversifying our economy and strengthening that, these are not inherently partisan issues, but it feels like everything becomes partisan kind of in this environment. And people, the average person who is just trying to pay their grocery bill and get their kids off to school and get to work on time doesn't care about partisan squabbles. They just want us to deliver. They want access to affordable housing and health care. They want to make sure that their kids are getting the education they need. They can drink the water coming out of their tap. I mean, these are the fundamentals. And that's why I try to stay focused on those things, because I think that's where we can find common ground. Every other week since I've been governor, I host quadrant meetings. And this is something I learned from my dad. When Governor Milliken was governor, he did this, hosted all four of the leaders, the Republicans and Democrats from both chambers, and talked through differences. It didn't mean they always agreed on things, but one thing I know is if you're not talking, you're never going to find common ground. So we do that, and it's not always fun, but I think it's really important that we continue to try. I do think that the people in this room have a very important role in that, in keeping us focused on solving problems and holding us accountable to that, in encouraging legislators and statewide electeds and municipally elected people alike to always stay focused on that, and when we don't, to take us into account. And I think there's a role for everyone here, but it's very challenging in this environment. I think some of those numbers that Sandy shared with regard to the Shuba poll that the chamber did are really disturbing, and tells me that we, all of us, more than ever, have to lean in here and be a part of supporting our democracy. Can you imagine that we have to say we've got to convince almost 30% of our population that democracy is the best form of government? But it's kind of where we are right now, and it's a very concerning trend, and I think we all can play a role.
And I guess that raises the question. Can you hear me? Well, we're consistent. I think that leads us to the question.
Oh, here they come.
There is a 2 or 3 year period of time that you have in your job as governor. It's hard to believe, we talked about it off stage. You're 6 years, almost 6 years into your governorship, but there's a lot of work to be done. And on that point, what are the half a dozen or so, or 2 or 3 things that you think about that it would be great to get done over the next couple of years?
Well, there are, right now, the legislature, we've got another month before the budget's due, and I think we've got a real opportunity when it comes to economic development. There have been some interesting solutions that have been put on the table around transit as well. These are issues that have vexed us. These are issues that the Growth Council identified as really important to growing our population. I would love to see us be successful on that. I'm not endorsing a particular plan at this juncture, but I think I'm very encouraged by what I've seen come out of the legislature or be introduced into the legislature recently. I still would love for us to land a big fab when it comes to, a potential CHIPS opportunity. We're in competition, and growing our defense sector, I think, is something that is a real natural extension of our expertise and opportunity. And then, I know that there's a lot of orange barrels, and you tell me how much you love them, you're welcome. But we still haven't done a long-term infrastructure solution. We haven't, despite all the work you see happening, and that's something that I remain committed to getting done. It doesn't get easier or cheaper or until we actually have a longer-term solution. So that's a part of it too.
Awesome. And it is kind of, as you watch, and all the things that the collective has been done around transportation and the roads, people are smiling that you get all the barrels up, and then it's, I got to sit in traffic, but we need to get the roads fixed. So that means something must be working okay. So that's good. You've made a real focus in your administration around clean energy, which is a long-term, very important issue for America and the world, for that matter. And do you want to talk a little bit about that moving forward, on what your thoughts are over the next 2 or 3 years?
I appreciate that. I'm really proud of what we were able to get done. We worked with our utilities, we worked with labor, we worked with environmentalists. This isn't a package that one group drove. We worked together to make it happen. And I think that Michigan is showing the world that you can have good jobs, and there is an important role for our traditional utilities and advance, our American energy created by Americans. It's so important for our homeland security. And that's why bringing Palisades back online, looking for partners to do that, it took an incredible amount of work. My team, between Joanne Halls and Trish Foster, the amount of work that went into trying to make sure that we had a real plan to bring that back online, it's crucial if we're going to meet our clean energy goals. We've got to be successful here. And so I'm really grateful that so many different partners came together to make this clean energy package happen. It's the right thing to do, but it's also crucial for our homeland security, for supporting industry, for meeting the needs of Michigan business and Michigan people.
That's great. That's awesome. As a grandfather of 4, that are 3 of them in the public school system in Michigan, various places, you've been direct, forthright, and active in public education and what needs to be done, what's being done, and then moving forward, to make us a better state in that face. Talk about education a little bit from your perspective of the importance of where we need to go in education, really from pre-K all the way through higher ed, because it's a game changer for any state, including Michigan.
I think one of the things that came out of the Growing Michigan Together Council work was that if we could have universal pre-K, it really would give every child in Michigan the advantage of starting kindergarten, being ready to learn. That sets you up for lifelong wealth and health on a trajectory that is really important. And we know if we could even start younger would be ideal, but let's get to universal pre-K first. But extending it into 2 years beyond high school is breaking down the barrier of that. For many people in our state, $8,000 to go to community college, we've got the greatest system around, is a complete barrier.
Right.
If we could make that a foregone conclusion, we would have more X-ray techs, the people that do the hard work where we're looking to find employees. I'm looking at Bob Ryan, he's going, give me x-ray techs, right? Yeah. But I think that it's, that if we could do this, we'd be the first state in the nation to have pre-K through 14 available to every Michigander. It really is a potential game changer for us. Now, we have a lot of work to do to ensure that we're improving outcomes for kids. And that's why that pre-K is so important, to improve our literacy rates. And there's a lot of work to do there, but we're making strides. Recovering from a pandemic, I think, is an enormous hurdle, but I think that these investments, the making it easier for people to go into teaching, alleviate the financial barrier and the debt that so many carry, all of these are working toward that same goal.
Yeah, absolutely, and it is a game changer. And you think about community college, for example, of kids that aren't ready. If you can relieve that barrier financially, but also it's amazing how many people grow up in that 2 or 3 year period from 18 to 21 and through that system. And it is a game changer. So we're looking forward to that. Now, I have to do this because if I didn't, you would all look at me like, yeah, he needs to retire. But everybody, you've written a book that's out shortly, True Gretch. And so, which is kind of, I think kind of cool. So tell us about it.
Well, it's not as heady as the book that you wrote about sharing the balance of power, but it is one of the questions I get the most, traveling our own state or elsewhere for that matter, is how do you stay positive when so much heavy stuff has come your way? How do you stay optimistic when you're dealing with threats and pandemics and floods and all the other things? 28 recall attempts. You weren't counting, but I did. When you have to deal with all of that, how do you stay positive and optimistic? And, this is a heavy time. And I think the next 5 months is going to be heavy. I mean, we heard Paul Ryan and we heard Chuck Todd, and, it's a heavy time. And so I thought, this is maybe an opportunity to put a little light out in the world. So it's 10 chapters. It's not a self-aggrandizing memoir to get ready to run for president, no matter what anyone says. It's 10 chapters. It's a quick read. It's 10 different lessons I've learned in my life that I've used over the last 6 years to stay positive and to stay focused. There's a lot of self-deprecating humor, so at least maybe you'll get a laugh at my expense. No dogs or goats were killed in the making of this book.
Good one.
But it's that. It's just to put a little light out into the world. And if it gives someone some inspiration or a laugh, that's what it's all about.
Awesome. And we're looking for you.
And you can pre-order now.
Middle of July, right? Is that what
I think July 9th, yeah.
Okay, cool. That is, I think everybody is looking forward to reading it. And you told me it's a quick read, and you'll enjoy it, so I believe you. But this has been a pleasure for me. I just have to say, this is the 5th time we've done this together, and it comes from a lifetime of really fun stuff that and stuff that have made a difference. It's been a pleasure working with you. We're not going away, but it's a different change for me, and I really appreciate your professionalism, who you are as a person, most importantly, but also who you are as a governor. I've been through a lot over the, I even remember shaking Governor Milliken's hand, so it is a while. And you are a great leader, and I appreciate that, and it's been great to do this. And thanks for this today.
Well, thank you.